A lonely cowboy took in an 18-year-old girl, left tied to a fence by her drunk father. The wind carried a dry, dusty scent, and the occasional chirp of strange desert birds echoed in the distance. Jonas Cade, a solitary cowboy, sat on his horse, starlight, watching the horizon. His cabin, small but sturdy, lay a few miles behind him. He had lived here for years. Alone except for starlight and a few scattered holographic companions he sometimes created to feel less lonely. Jonas was a tall man, with tanned skin and weathered hands. Life on Iridian had taught him patience, resourcefulness, and caution. Most travelers avoided the desert. Those who didn't return. But Jonas had learned its secrets, the hidden water wells, the safe paths during sandstorms, and the silent language of the desert creatures. Life was hard here, but it was simple, and he liked it that way. As he rode along a narrow trail toward a small water well he had checked the day before, he noticed something unusual. At the edge of the trail, near an old, rickety fence, there was a figure. Jonas slowed starlight and squinted through the fading light. A young woman was sitting on the ground, her hair tangled and dusty, her hands tied loosely in front of her. Her eyes widened as she saw him. "Please help me," she said, her voice trembling, though not with fear, more with exhaustion. Jonas immediately felt a surge of concern. It was rare to find anyone out here, let alone someone in need. He dismounted carefully and approached her. "Hey there," he said gently, keeping his voice calm. "You okay? What happened?" The girl swallowed hard. My father," she began, her words halting. He left me. I don't know, I couldn't keep up, and he didn't untie me." She paused, looking ashamed. "I'm 18. I don't know what to do." Jonas's eyes softened. She didn't seem hurt, just tired and frightened. "It's all right," he said. "I'll get you untied." He knelt beside her and worked quickly to loosen the knots. His hands were steady, experienced, and careful not to hurt her. Once she was free, she rubbed her wrists, feeling the blood flow back to them. "Thank you," she whispered, looking up at him with a mix of relief and curiosity. I'm Lyra." "Jonas," he replied, nodding. "You're safe now. Come on, let's get you somewhere you can rest." He gestured toward his cabin in the distance. Lyra hesitated. "I can walk," she said softly, but Jonas could see she was weak, her legs trembling. He offered a hand and she took it, letting him support her as they walked. Starlight followed quietly, sensing the tension but also the safety in Jonas's calm presence. The cabin was modest, a small wooden structure reinforced against the harsh desert winds. Inside, it was surprisingly warm. Jonas had a few essentials: a bed, a table, and shelves lined with basic tools and preserved food. He led Lyra to the bed and gestured for her to sit. "Sit down," he said. "You look like you've had a long day." Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the cabin. "It's nice here," she said, almost to herself. "I've never seen anything like it." Jonas smiled faintly. "It's quiet, that's the point." He turned to the small kitchen area. "I'll make some tea. You need something warm in your stomach." While Jonas prepared the tea, Lyra looked out the window. The desert stretched endlessly, beautiful and lonely all at once. She shivered, not from the cold, but from the realization of how alone she had been. And yet in this moment she felt a glimmer of hope. Jonas handed her the steaming mug. She took it carefully, savoring the warmth. You saved me," she said softly. "Everyone deserves help sometimes," Jonas replied simply, "especially when they can't help themselves." Lyra smiled faintly, feeling something inside her shift. It wasn't just relief, it was a strange sense of wonder, as if she had stepped into a world she never knew existed. After a few moments of silence, Jonas spoke again. "I know you might be tired, but I need to know, do you have anywhere to go, any family?" Lyra shook her head. "No, not really. My father, he's not a good man. I left him. I mean, I didn't leave, but he left me," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "I don't have anyone else. I've been alone for a long time." Jonas listened quietly. He could feel the weight of her words. Life on Iridian was harsh, but it was nothing compared to what she had endured. He wanted to offer her more than just shelter. He wanted her to feel that humans could be kind even in a lonely world. "All right," he said finally. "You can stay here for now. You'll have a safe place, food, water, and some rest. No one will bother you." Lyra blinked almost in disbelief. "You're letting me stay?" "Yes," Jonas replied simply, "for as long as you need." The days passed slowly, but they passed. Jonas taught Lyra how to manage simple tasks in the desert, how to draw water from the well, how to identify edible plants, and how to protect herself from sudden sandstorms. Lyra was quick to learn, her curiosity and intelligence shining through. Jonas watched her with a mixture of admiration and quiet pride. Humans were remarkable, resilient, adaptable, and endlessly curious. One evening, as the two sat outside watching the twin moons rise over the horizon, Lyra asked, "Jonas, why are you out here all alone?" "Doesn't it get lonely?" Jonas chuckled softly. "It does, but loneliness isn't the same as being alone. You learn to live with yourself, to understand the world around you. Out here I can think, I can watch the desert, and I can be free." Lyra nodded, thinking about her own life. She had never experienced freedom, not really. Even in her short 18 years, she had always been bound by someone else's rules, someone else's control. But here, in this quiet desert with Jonas, she began to imagine a different life. A life where she could make her own choices, explore new places, and discover her own strengths. The wind rustled through the sand, carrying with it a faint hum almost musical. Jonas and Lyra both paused to listen. Starlight snorted softly, lifting its head as if sensing something unusual. "What is that?" Lyra asked. Jonas frowned, listening more intently. "Not sure," he admitted. "Sometimes the desert, it has sounds, things you can't explain. Could be the wind through the rocks, could be something else." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Something else," Jonas shrugged. "Maybe, but that's the beauty of it. You never really know. You just keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep surviving." For the first time in her life, Lyra felt a sense of peace. She was still far from safe in the wider world, still far from knowing what the future held. But with Jonas here, she knew she had a guide, a protector, a mentor, and someone who believed in her ability to survive and thrive. That night, as the desert grew cold and the stars twinkled like diamonds overhead, Lyra lay in the small bed Jonas had prepared for her. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about the vast universe beyond the desert. Maybe one day she would travel, see new worlds, and learn all that humans were capable of. But for now, she was safe. For now, she was learning. For now, she was alive, and that was enough. Jonas sat nearby, cleaning his tools and listening to the night. He didn't speak, but he watched over her silently. He knew that humans were remarkable creatures, resilient, kind, and endlessly capable. And in this quiet corner of Iridian, he felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, humanity could thrive even in the loneliest of places. And as the night deepened, the wind carried a gentle promise through the desert sands, a promise of new beginnings, new discoveries, and the unbreakable spirit of humankind. The next morning, the desert sun rose slowly, painting the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. The wind was calm, carrying the faint smell of dry sand and strange desert flowers that bloomed only after sunrise. Lyra woke early, her body still aching from the long walk the day before, but her mind buzzing with curiosity. She stretched and looked out the small cabin window. The desert seemed endless, a vast orange sea dotted with occasional rock formations. She could see Jonas outside, tending to his small solar panels and checking the water well. His movements were calm, precise, almost like a dance he had done 1,000 times. Lyra felt a mix of awe and nervous excitement. She had lived her whole life following others' instructions, but here, in this lonely desert, she had choices. She could learn, explore, and understand the world on her own terms. She stepped outside and approached Jonas. "Good morning," she said softly. Jonas looked up, a faint smile crossing his face. "Morning," he replied. "Sleep well," Lyra nodded. "Yes, but I can't stop thinking about everything. The desert, the stars, even this cabin, it's different, alive almost." Jonas chuckled. "The desert has its own life. You just have to know how to listen." Lyra tilted her head. "Listen. How do you listen to the desert?" Jonas led her to a nearby rock formation, where small wind instruments made from hollow stones hummed in the breeze. "You feel it, hear it, notice the small things," he explained. "The way the wind moves, the sound of shifting sand, the calls of the desert birds. It tells you where water is, where it's safe to travel, and even when a storm is coming." Lyra knelt beside him, listening carefully. The soft hum of the desert was almost musical, calming yet mysterious. She realized she had never truly noticed her surroundings before. Every rock, every ripple of sand seemed important, a small piece of a larger story. As they worked together, Jonas taught her how to find edible plants and herbs hidden among the sand. He showed her how to store water in small, sealed containers that could last for days, and how to navigate by the position of the sun and the stars. Lyra absorbed every lesson eagerly, her mind sharp and quick. "You learn fast," Jonas said, noticing how she picked up the techniques quickly. "Most people would struggle here for months before understanding these things." Lyra smiled. "I like learning, and I want to survive. I don't want to be helpless again." Jonas nodded, silently impressed. Humans had a remarkable ability to adapt, he thought. Even in the harshest conditions, they could survive, thrive, and even improve the world around them. Lyra was a perfect example of that, curious, resilient, and intelligent. Later that day, while checking one of the old water wells, Lyra noticed something unusual in the sand. A faint shimmer, almost like a reflection of light, but brighter and more colorful than sunlight alone. She pointed it out to Jonas. He squinted. That's not normal, could be buried metal. Let's take a closer look." Together they dug carefully, uncovering a small, smooth object half buried in the sand. It was metallic but lightweight, shaped like a flat disc with glowing symbols etched into its surface. Lyra traced the patterns with her fingers, fascinated. "What is it?" she asked. Jonas shrugged. "Not sure. Could be old human tech or something left behind by travelers long ago. The desert hides many secrets." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Can we open it?" Jonas nodded. "We'll try, but carefully. Some things, well, you never know what you might find." Over the next few hours, they worked together to activate the device. Lyra's curiosity and intuition guided Jonas, and soon, a small holographic projection appeared in the air above the disk. Strange symbols floated in midair, along with a three-dimensional map of the desert, marking locations of hidden wells, caves, and even small settlements. Lyra gasped. "It's a map," Jonas smiled faintly. "Not just any map. This shows places humans settled long ago. Places we don't even know exist anymore." Lyra's mind raced. The desert suddenly seemed even more alive, filled with hidden history and possibilities. "We could explore them," she said, almost whispering. "Learn what humans built here, see what we can find." Jonas hesitated. "It's dangerous. Some areas are unstable, some may be collapsed, and some, well, we don't know what we'll encounter." Lyra looked determined. "I want to try. I want to see what's out there." Jonas studied her for a long moment. He could see her courage, her determination, her curiosity. Humans were always curious, always reaching beyond what was safe, and that was what made them special. He nodded. "All right, but we go carefully, and we stick together." Over the next few days, Jonas and Lyra prepared for their exploration. They gathered supplies, repaired old solar-powered vehicles left behind by past settlers, and mapped out a route to a nearby hidden cave marked on the holographic map. Lyra's excitement grew with every step. She felt like she was part of something bigger, something human and extraordinary. On the morning they were ready to leave, Jonas handed Lyra a small device. "This is a communicator. If anything happens, we can stay in contact, and it can help us translate old tech we find." Lyra held it carefully. "Thank you, Jonas. I feel like I'm ready now." Jonas nodded. "Good. Remember, it's not just about finding things. It's about understanding them. Humans are good at that, seeing connections, learning quickly, adapting." As they traveled, the desert seemed to shift around them. Strange rock formations glimmered under the sun, wind-carved patterns in the sand hinted at ancient water flows, and occasionally, small creatures darted past, curious but cautious. Lyra noticed every detail, her mind constantly working, always asking questions. "Jonas," she said suddenly, pointing to a strange marking on a rock. "Look, that symbol matches the one on the holographic map." Jonas examined it. "You're right, looks like the path is correct." Whoever made this map, they left clues. Humans, they've always done that, hide knowledge in plain sight. Lyra's excitement was contagious. "It's amazing. Even in the desert, humans found ways to leave messages, guide others, and survive." Jonas smiled quietly. "That's what makes us special. No matter where we go, no matter how harsh the world is, humans find a way to leave a mark, to survive, to thrive." By the time they reached the hidden cave, the sun was dipping low, casting long shadows over the sand. The cave entrance was narrow and covered in faint markings, similar to those on the map. Jonas carefully led the way inside, using a small lantern to light their path. Inside, the cave was filled with strange relics, old tools, storage containers, and faded holographic devices. Lyra's eyes widened. This is incredible. Humans built all this here in the middle of the desert." Jonas nodded. "Yes, long ago humans settled even the most unlikely places. They learned, adapted, and left knowledge behind for others to find." Lyra walked slowly among the relics, touching them gently. Each piece told a story of resilience, of survival, of intelligence and curiosity. She realized that humans were not just survivors, they were creators, explorers, and learners. This is what I want to do," Lyra said softly. "Learn everything, discover everything, help people survive and thrive." Jonas looked at her, pride shining in his eyes. "You will. You have the curiosity, the intelligence, and the courage. Humans always find a way. And now you're part of that legacy." For the rest of the day, they cataloged the relics, repaired what they could, and carefully studied the holographic devices. Lyra learned quickly, asking questions, experimenting, and sometimes making mistakes, but learning from them. Jonas watched her, amazed at how fast she adapted, how naturally she understood things that took him years to learn. As night fell, they sat at the cave entrance, looking out over the desert. The twin moons shone brightly, reflecting off the sand and casting silver shadows. Lyra felt a deep sense of connection, not just to Jonas, not just to the desert, but to all humans who had lived, learned, and survived before her. "Do you think humans will ever leave this desert?" she asked quietly. Jonas smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe some of us will always stay, guarding knowledge, keeping the stories alive. Humans, we always adapt, we always find a way, and sometimes we leave behind treasures for others to discover." Lyra nodded, feeling inspired. She had survived her father's neglect, learned to live in the harsh desert, and now discovered a hidden legacy of human ingenuity. She felt alive, capable, and ready to continue learning. That night, as they slept under the stars near the cave entrance, Lyra dreamed of distant planets, ancient civilizations, and the boundless potential of humanity. Jonas watched over her silently, knowing that she was not just a survivor. She was a testament to what humans could do, even in the loneliest corners of the universe. And in that quiet desert, among relics of the past, Lyra took her first steps into a future filled with discovery, hope, and the unbreakable spirit of humankind. The morning sun rose slowly over the desert, casting a warm, golden glow over the sand and rocks. Lyra and Jonas stepped out of the cave, their eyes scanning the horizon. Today, their journey would take them to the lost human settlement marked on the holographic map they had discovered the day before. Lyra's heart raced with excitement. "Do you think people lived there?" she asked eagerly. Jonas nodded. "Yes. Long ago, humans tried to settle even the harshest places. They built homes, stored water, and created tools to survive. This settlement, it hasn't been touched in decades, maybe even centuries. But it's a window into the past." The two traveled carefully across the desert, following the faint markers left by ancient settlers. Sand shifted beneath their feet, and occasional desert plants brushed against their hands. Lyra marveled at the way Jonas could read the subtle signs of the land. The tiny tracks left by desert creatures, the small depressions where water once pooled, the patterns in the sand that indicated hidden rocks or tunnels. "You really notice everything, don't you?" she said, trying to match his careful steps. Jonas shrugged. "You have to. The desert doesn't forgive carelessness. And humans, we've always learned to survive by noticing the small things." Lyra thought about that. Humans had survived her father's neglect, her own fears, and now, even this harsh desert. They were clever, resourceful, and strong, not just physically, but in mind and spirit. After a few hours, the settlement came into view. Nestled between two rocky hills, it was mostly buried in sand. Stone walls and the outlines of buildings peeked above the dunes, and faint structures hinted at former streets and squares. A soft wind blew through the ruins, carrying with it the echoes of lives long past. Lyra gasped. "It's beautiful. Even though it's old and broken, it feels alive." Jonas smiled faintly. "That's the mark of humans. Even abandoned places carry our energy, our effort, our creativity. Look closely and you can read their stories." The first building they explored was a small storage house. Sand had piled up inside, but many containers and tools remained intact. Lyra ran her fingers over the surfaces, amazed at how clever humans had been. Simple machines, water purifiers, and even solar-powered lights had been carefully designed to survive in the desert. "Jonas, look at this," she exclaimed, pointing to a small device on a shelf. It was a handheld tool with glowing buttons. "It's still working." Jonas peered at it. Ancient human tech. Some things were made to last even if the world changes around them. Humans always think ahead. Lyra pressed a few buttons and the device hummed to life, projecting a small holographic map. "It shows the entire settlement," she said, her eyes wide. "We can explore everything without getting lost." Jonas nodded approvingly. "Good thinking. Humans always create ways to share knowledge. That's how civilizations survive, through information, tools, and cooperation." They followed the map to a larger building, which seemed to have been the center of the settlement. Inside, faded murals depicted humans working together, gathering water, building shelters, studying the stars. Lyra traced the images with her fingers, imagining the people who had lived here long ago. They really cared about learning and sharing knowledge," she whispered. Jonas nodded. "Yes, that's what humans do. We adapt, we build, and we teach. And even when life is harsh, we try to leave something behind for the next generation." Lyra's eyes brightened. "That's exactly what I want to do. I want to learn everything here and maybe help bring some of this knowledge back to life." Jonas studied her. "You have the right mindset. Humans aren't just survivors, they're creators, explorers, and teachers. And you already have all those qualities." As they explored, Lyra discovered a small chamber filled with ancient data crystals. Each crystal contained holographic records, instructions, designs, and lessons from past settlers. Some showed how to purify water, others explained methods to grow desert plants, and some even contained messages about human values, cooperation, kindness, and curiosity. "This is incredible," Lyra said, her fingers trembling as she activated one of the crystals. A holographic figure appeared, showing a group of settlers working together to build a wind-powered water pump. Humans really thought of everything, Jonas nodded. They did. We're amazing like that. No matter how harsh life gets, we find solutions. We care for each other and we make the impossible possible. Lyra's excitement grew with each new discovery. She began documenting the knowledge, taking notes, and experimenting with small devices. Jonas watched her with quiet pride. Humans, he thought, were remarkable, resilient, clever, and endlessly curious. And Lyra embodied all of that. After a while, they came across a partially buried dome-shaped structure. Jonas helped Lyra carefully clear the sand, revealing a small greenhouse inside. Strange, hardy plants grew within, nurtured by a long-abandoned hydroponic system. Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Look at this, Jonas. Humans even learned to grow food in the desert." Jonas smiled. "Yes. Adaptability, that's what sets humans apart. We find ways to survive, and sometimes even to thrive in the most unlikely places." Lyra carefully examined the greenhouse system, figuring out how it worked. She realized that with some repairs it could function again. "Jonas, we could restart this. Grow food here. Bring life back to this place." Jonas looked at her, impressed by her enthusiasm and intelligence. "That's exactly what humans do. We see possibilities where others see emptiness. We create, we learn, and we make life better." For the rest of the day, Lyra and Jonas worked together. They repaired parts of the greenhouse, tested old water filters, and experimented with solar-powered devices. Each small success filled Lyra with pride and wonder. She realized that humans weren't just survivors. They were inventors, thinkers, and dreamers. As evening approached, they sat outside the settlement, watching the twin moons rise over the desert. Lyra felt a deep connection to the humans who had lived here long ago. Their knowledge, their creativity, and their spirit were still alive in the relics, the plants, and the devices. "Jonas," Lyra said softly, "I think I understand now. Humans were special, not because we're the strongest or the fastest, but because we never stop learning. We adapt, we create, and we care for each other." Jonas nodded. "Exactly. That's why you're here, Lyra. You have the same spark. You learn, you explore, and you carry it forward. Humans are remarkable, and now you're part of that legacy." Lyra smiled, feeling a sense of purpose she had never known. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving. She was contributing, discovering, and growing. She felt connected to something larger than herself, a network of human ingenuity stretching across time and space. That night, as they slept under the stars near the settlement, Lyra dreamed of the past and the future. She imagined humans building, learning, and exploring, and she saw herself as part of that story, someone who could take what they had learned and carry it forward into new worlds. Jonas watched over her silently, knowing that she was more than a survivor. She was a testament to human resilience, intelligence, and spirit. Even in the quiet, harsh desert of Aridian, humanity's light shone brightly through her. And as the wind whispered through the ruins, carrying the scent of sand and the faint traces of ancient lives, Lyra felt hope. She was ready to explore, learn, and create. She was ready to be human, curious, brave, and endlessly adaptable. The lost settlement was no longer abandoned. Through Lyra's hands and Jonas's guidance, it began to come alive again, a symbol of what humans could achieve even in the loneliest, most challenging places. And in that quiet desert, a new chapter of human history quietly began. The morning sun rose slowly over the lost settlement, casting golden rays on the sand and stone buildings. The air was calm, filled with the faint scent of desert flowers and the soft hum of the wind through the ruins. Lyra stepped outside the greenhouse, her hands dirty from watering and tending the small plants that were beginning to grow again. She felt a quiet pride. These fragile plants were a sign of life returning to a place long abandoned. Jonas joined her, carrying a small box of tools. "Morning," he said with a smile. "How's our little garden today?" Lyra wiped her hands on her pants. "Growing fast." I think it will survive the night storms now." She paused, looking at him. "Jonas, I didn't realize humans could do so much in such a harsh place. It's amazing." Jonas nodded. "That's what humans do. We survive, we learn, and we find ways to thrive. No matter how difficult the world is, we always find hope." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "I want to learn everything you know. I want to be ready to face the world, to help others, and to discover things humans have left behind." Jonas studied her carefully. She had grown so much since arriving in his cabin, a young woman full of curiosity, intelligence, and courage. He realized that teaching her wasn't just about survival, it was about lessons of the heart, trust, patience, empathy, and hope. Over the next few days, Jonas guided Lyra through repairs and improvements across the settlement. They restored water filters, fixed solar panels, and repaired storage systems. Lyra learned to think critically, to experiment, and to adapt when things didn't work as expected. Sometimes she made mistakes, broken wires, misplaced tools, but Jonas encouraged her, showing that learning often comes from trying and failing. One afternoon, while fixing a small wind turbine, Lyra paused. "Jonas, why did you live alone all this time?" she asked, curious. He wiped sweat from his brow and looked at the horizon. "I wanted simplicity, I liked the quiet, but also I didn't know who to trust after losing people I cared about. It's easier to be alone." Lyra tilted her head. "But now you're not alone. You have me and the settlement and the plants and all this history. Don't you feel connected?" Jonas smiled faintly. "Yes, slowly I do. Humans, we need connection. That's what makes us strong, not just our brains or our hands. It's the heart that keeps us going." Lyra thought about her own life, her father, her struggles, and the loneliness she had felt. She realized that trusting someone, learning from someone, and caring for something together made life meaningful. She felt grateful for Jonas, for the desert, and for the chance to learn. That evening, as the twin moons rose over the settlement, Jonas and Lyra sat near the greenhouse. The soft glow of the plants illuminated their faces. "Jonas," Lyra said quietly, "I want to do more than survive. I want to make this place live again. I want to show humans can thrive anywhere, even in the hardest places." Jonas nodded. "Exactly. Humans are remarkable because we can make the impossible possible. You're already doing that. The plants, the repaired tech, even just your ideas, they're bringing life back here." Lyra smiled. She felt a new sense of purpose. She wasn't just exploring the settlement, she was reviving it, learning how humans could survive and even flourish in harsh worlds. The next morning, they discovered something extraordinary. While digging near the edge of the settlement, Lyra unearthed a small underground chamber. The entrance was covered in sand, but inside it was cool and surprisingly dry. The walls were lined with ancient human tools, notebooks, and machines that had somehow survived the decades. Jonas's eyes widened. This is incredible. Whoever lived here wanted to preserve knowledge. Humans, we think about the future, even when we're struggling in the present." Lyra carefully examined the objects. "These could help us improve the settlement. Look at this water filter. And this energy collector. We could make life easier here." Jonas nodded. "Humans are ingenious. We never stop learning, never stop improving. That's why you're learning so fast, you have the same spark." Lyra worked late into the evening, cleaning and organizing the chamber. She realized that every object, every tool, every piece of knowledge told a story about humans' creativity and resilience. She felt proud to be part of that story, even in a small way. Over the next few days, they experimented with the new tools. Lyra learned to repair old machines, improve water systems, and even enhance the greenhouse. Each small success made her more confident and independent. Jonas watched her, realizing that humans weren't just survivors. They were builders, innovators, and problem solvers. One afternoon, a sudden sandstorm approached. The wind howled across the desert, carrying dust and sand that could easily damage the settlement if unprotected. Lyra panicked slightly, unsure what to do. Jonas placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Calm down. Humans have survived storms for thousands of years. Watch and learn. Together, they reinforced the greenhouse, secured the water tanks, and covered delicate machinery. Lyra observed Jonas carefully, noticing how he anticipated the wind, moved quickly, and made smart decisions. After the storm passed, the settlement was intact. Lyra realized something important. Humans didn't just survive, they adapted, planned, and worked together to overcome challenges. Jonas, she said, smiling, humans really are amazing. Even in the toughest conditions, we find a way. Jonas nodded. Exactly. And now you're learning to be one of those humans. You'll carry this knowledge forward. Lyra felt a warmth in her heart. For the first time, she didn't feel helpless or lost. She had purpose, guidance, and the tools to create something meaningful. She realized that being human was about more than survival. It was about hope, learning, and caring for the world and each other. As the days passed, Jonas and Lyra grew closer, not in a romantic way, but as mentor and student, partners in discovery and friends who shared trust and respect. Lyra learned more than survival skills. She learned patience, empathy, and courage. She learned that humans could transform the world around them with care, knowledge, and collaboration. One evening, while repairing an old water filter, Lyra paused and looked at Jonas. "Do you think humans could live anywhere, even on other planets?" Jonas smiled. "Yes. We've done it before and we'll do it again. Humans adapt, we learn, we survive, and most importantly, we care. That's what makes us special. The universe can be harsh, but humans, we find a way." Lyra felt inspired. She realized that her journey was just beginning. She wanted to explore, discover, and help humanity thrive, even beyond the desert, beyond Iridian. But for now, she focused on the settlement, on reviving it, and on learning everything she could from Jonas and the ancient humans who had lived there before. That night, as they sat outside the greenhouse, the twin moons glowing above, Jonas spoke quietly. "Lyra, you remind me why humans are remarkable, not just because we survive, but because we care, we learn, and we leave knowledge for others. You have that spark too." Lyra looked at him, her eyes shining. "I want to carry it forward, Jonas. I want to help humans thrive just like they did here. I want to make a difference." Jonas smiled, feeling proud. "You will. Humans always make a difference, especially when they work together and care for the world. And now you're ready to take the next step." The desert was quiet, filled with soft sounds of wind, shifting sand, and distant wildlife. Lyra felt a deep sense of peace. She knew she was part of something bigger, a legacy of humans who had survived, adapted, and created knowledge for the future. And in that quiet desert, among the ruins of the past and the small green shoots of life she had helped nurture, Lyra realized the most important lesson. Being human wasn't just about survival. It was about hope, creativity, compassion, and the courage to face the unknown. As she closed her eyes under the twin moons, Lyra dreamed not just of survival but of thriving. She dreamed of new discoveries, new inventions, and a future where humans continued to learn, adapt, and shine, even in the loneliest corners of the universe. And Jonas, sitting beside her, knew that she was no longer just a young girl left behind by her father. She was a symbol of human potential, a reminder that humanity could rise above adversity, create wonders, and light up the stars with curiosity, courage, and care. The sun rose slowly over the desert, spreading its warm, golden light across the revived settlement. Birds sang softly, and the wind carried the faint scent of flowers that had begun to bloom in small clusters around the greenhouse. Lyra stepped outside, taking a deep breath of fresh desert air. She felt proud, not just of the settlement, but of herself. She had grown stronger, smarter, and more confident over the past weeks. Jonas emerged from the cabin behind her, carrying a small pack of tools. "Morning," he said with a smile. "The plants survived the night and the solar panels are all working. "You've done an excellent job, Lyra," Lyra smiled back. "Thanks, Jonas. I couldn't have done it without you. You taught me everything." Jonas shook his head. "You taught yourself. I just guided you. Humans, we learn fast when we're curious, and you were always curious." They spent the morning finishing repairs to the old water system. Lyra adjusted valves, checked filters, and tested the flow. The water sparkled as it ran through the pipes, and small shoots of green plants seemed to perk up as if sensing the life returning to the settlement. Lyra felt a deep sense of satisfaction. "This is incredible," she said softly. "We've really done it. We've brought this place back to life." Jonas nodded. "Yes, humans have a remarkable ability to create life, even in the harshest conditions. And now this place can support others, travelers, explorers, anyone who comes looking for shelter or knowledge." Lyra's eyes shone. "We could even teach them, show them how humans survive and adapt, how to care for each other and the world around them." Jonas smiled. "Exactly. Humans aren't just survivors. We're teachers, innovators, and helpers, and you've learned that lesson well." By midday, the settlement was buzzing with small, purposeful activity. Lyra had repaired several old machines and set up small teaching areas, where anyone who arrived could learn basic survival skills, water management, and plant cultivation. Jonas watched her work, impressed by her organization and leadership. Humans, he thought, always found a way to improve their world. Later that afternoon, Lyra discovered another hidden chamber beneath the settlement. This one was larger, filled with ancient books, holographic archives, and tools that had never been touched. Jonas helped her carefully activate the holographic projectors. Images appeared in the air, humans building settlements, cultivating plants, exploring distant lands, and studying the stars. Lyra gasped. "Jonas, humans did all this here on this desert planet centuries ago. And they wanted to preserve it for others to find." Jonas nodded. "Yes, that's the strength of humanity. We think about the future. We leave knowledge for the next generations. And now you're part of that chain." Lyra spent hours studying the archives, taking notes, and experimenting with small devices. She realized that humans weren't just builders or survivors. They were explorers, thinkers, and learners. And she was ready to carry that legacy forward. As the evening approached, Jonas and Lyra sat outside the settlement, watching the twin moons rise over the desert. The sky was painted with streaks of pink, purple, and gold, and the sand shimmered softly in the moonlight. Lyra felt a sense of peace and hope she had never known before. "Jonas," she said quietly, "do you think humans could live on other planets, far from Earth, far from everything familiar?" Jonas smiled. "Yes, humans can adapt anywhere. We learn, we build, and we care. That's what makes us strong. And now, with what we've learned here, you could help humans thrive anywhere." Lyra nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. She imagined other settlements, other explorers, and other deserts waiting to be revived. She saw herself teaching, discovering, and creating a better future for humanity. The next few days were filled with experimentation and expansion. Lyra and Jonas worked together to install more solar panels, repair old energy collectors, and improve the water distribution system. Lyra began teaching herself advanced skills from the ancient archives, learning how to harness energy, cultivate food efficiently, and maintain equipment. One afternoon, while testing a water pump, Lyra noticed a faint vibration in the sand. She looked around, curious, and realized it wasn't natural. It was subtle, rhythmic, and precise. "Jonas, what's that?" she asked. He examined the ground carefully. "It's a signal. Humans sometimes left messages in unusual ways, vibrations, patterns, even lights. Let's follow it." They traced the signal to a small underground chamber, buried beneath sand and rock. Inside, they found an ancient device, still operational. It projected a holographic map of Aridian, showing other human settlements, water sources, and research stations scattered across the desert. Lyra's eyes widened. "Jonas, there's more. Humans built all over this planet, and we could revive some of it. Jonas nodded slowly. Yes, humans leave knowledge for those willing to learn, and now you're one of them. Excited, Lyra began planning how to use the map to improve life in the desert. She marked potential locations for new settlements, areas to explore, and places where humans could learn from ancient technology. Jonas watched her, silently proud. Humans weren't just survivors, they were planners, thinkers, and teachers. And Lyra had inherited all of those traits. As night fell, the two sat outside, gazing at the stars. Lyra felt a deep connection, not just to Jonas, not just to the settlement, but to all of humanity. She realized that humans were remarkable not because of strength or speed, but because of their curiosity, intelligence, compassion, and courage. Jonas, she said softly, I think humans really can thrive anywhere, even on distant planets, even in deserts like this. We just need to keep learning, caring, and helping each other. Jonas nodded. Exactly. Humans are special because we never give up, and now you're part of that story. The next morning, Lyra and Jonas began preparing the settlement for visitors. They repaired more buildings, organized supplies, and created clear paths to water sources and teaching areas. Lyra felt a deep sense of purpose. This was more than survival, it was building a future. As they worked, small desert animals began returning to the area, drawn by water, plants, and the quiet care that humans were bringing. Birds nested in repaired rooftops, insects moved through the soil, and tiny rodents explored the settlement cautiously. Lyra smiled. Life was returning, not just for humans, but for the desert itself. Days turned into weeks. Lyra and Jonas continued to explore nearby ruins, uncovering more devices, tools, and records. They repaired energy systems, expanded the greenhouse, and even began teaching simple survival techniques to travelers who stumbled upon the settlement. One evening, after a long day of repairs, Lyra looked at Jonas. Do you think humans will ever forget us? Forget how we survived, how we adapted? Jonas shook his head. No, humans always remember. We preserve knowledge, leave lessons, and share stories. And now you're helping continue that legacy. Humans won't forget. Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility and pride. She realized that she had grown from a scared, lonely girl into a capable, intelligent, and hopeful young woman. And it was all because humans never stopped learning, adapting, and caring. The settlement thrived. Water flowed through the pipes, plants grew abundantly, and devices hummed softly, powered by repaired solar panels. Travelers came and left, carrying lessons and knowledge to other parts of the desert. Lyra continued to explore, experiment, and teach, guided by Jonas and the knowledge of ancient humans. One morning, while walking through the greenhouse, Lyra paused and looked at the horizon. The desert stretched endlessly, but it no longer seemed empty. It was filled with possibility, hidden settlements, undiscovered devices, and the chance for humans to thrive anywhere. Jonas, she said, turning to him, we did it. We brought life back here, and I think we can do more. Humans can survive, learn, and thrive anywhere in the universe. Jonas smiled, a quiet pride shining in his eyes. Yes, humans always find a way, and now you're ready to help others do the same. You're proof of what humans can achieve. As the twin moons rose that night, casting silver light across the desert, Lyra felt a deep sense of hope. She had discovered the remarkable power of humans, their creativity, resilience, compassion, and intelligence. She realized that wherever humans went, whatever challenges they faced, they could survive, thrive, and leave a legacy for the future. And in that quiet desert, the once lost settlement shone brightly, not just with lights and water, but with the spirit of humanity. Through Lyra's hands, through Jonas's guidance, and through the knowledge of generations past, the desert had become a beacon of hope, learning, and life. Lyra stood tall, looking out at the horizon. She was no longer the lonely girl left behind by her father. She was a human explorer, a learner, and a creator. She carried the spark of humanity, curiosity, courage, intelligence, and compassion, ready to bring life, knowledge, and hope to the universe. And as the first rays of dawn touched the sand, Lyra whispered to herself, "Humans can thrive anywhere, and we will." The desert was quiet, peaceful, and alive. A new dawn had arrived, not just in the sky but in the hearts of humans, ready to shine across the stars.